During this current pandemic, we've been told to wear a mask, practice social distancing, sanitize regularly, and even get vaccinated to care for your body. And here's a question: what do you do to care for your soul? That's what I want to help you with today. Hi, my name is Craig Walker. This is Craig Walker Coaching, and I help people break free from the paralysis of self-doubt. If you want to win over the doubts that keep you from fulfilling your potential, achieving all the good things that you believe that God's called you to do, I hope you'll check out my program, Truly a Masterpiece. The link is in the notes down below. Also, there's a free download, Your Guide to Living the Life That You Were Born to Love. I hope you'll get it and check it out. If I can help you, be sure to let me know. Without any more delay, let's get started with our talk today. Okay, how do you care for your soul? Now, in my last talk, I shared with you that I'd felt overwhelmed. But I don't think I let you into my life really to see what overwhelm looked like to me. And so let me pull back the curtain and let you behind the scenes. You know about, we two loved ones that just died, traveling to visit the terminally ill, traveling to funerals. And then I think I even shared with you that we're coming home, and just when we think that, we're going to get an emotional break, we get more bad news. And let me add to that, I'm building my own house, literally by myself. And I have a 1-year timeline to complete the construction. And what I didn't share with you is that while I was doing all this, I also had just made a mistake that when I figured it out, I realized it's going to cost me about $1,500 to correct. And so I was down. I was emotionally down. I was sinking into despair. I looked at my abilities and I thought, you can't do this. And then I thought, how stupid of you to think that you could possibly build your own house while leading this ministry and get it all done with building the house within a year. And in the midst of all of that, my thoughts didn't quit attacking me. They turned to my teaching. I thought, you don't have anything to share with people that's going to be of help. What you produce is so lame. And by the way, I hope I'm not being too transparent. This is literally what I was dealing with. My thoughts didn't stop there either. I questioned my leadership at home. I had doubts about being a good husband, being a good dad. I just wanted to crawl into a hole. I wanted to get into a fetal position and just give up. And actually, I did that. When I went to bed at night, I just curled up in a ball and I couldn't sleep. My thoughts just tormented me more and more, and I just tossed and turned. To make matters worse, I thought, even God has let me down. I needed his help, and he wasn't there. Have you ever been there? Have you ever, just felt completely helpless? Well, that's what overwhelm looked like to me. But today, I'm starting a 2-part talk to show you what I do to care for my soul. This process is so powerful, it delivered me from overwhelm in just a matter of hours. What I'm giving you, it's a tool that I teach in my course called Truly a Masterpiece. This tool is something that I developed to help me win my battle over my wounded self-worth. But then once I had won that victory, I realized, man, this tool is so powerful. It's something that I need to practice all the time to keep my soul healthy. So how do you care for your soul? And this is what I do. I practice RRPM. RRPM stands for reflect, read, pray, and memorize. This is how I care for my soul. The first R stands for reflect. And this is where, for me, this is where it all begins. I'm going to walk you through this reflect process one step at a time. We're going to do it all in this video here today. And in the next video, I'll walk you through the second part of my routine: pray, read, pray, and memorize. So let's go back to reflect. My morning routine starts with reflecting. You can have your time with the Lord anytime. Don't get me wrong. I'm just a morning person, so I'm biased towards getting up and getting started in the morning. And I realized that's what Jesus did. Well, I'm just saying. Okay, reflect. This is the first conversation I want to have with God before I read anything, before I pray about anything, because this is where I deal with my doubts, and that's the first step to caring for your soul. I want you to listen to this verse. It comes from James chapter 1, and James is going to talk about dealing with doubts and how it relates to your soul, okay? James tells us that when you're praying and you ask for anything, or if anyone prays and asks for something, he said, let that person ask in faith with no doubting. And listen, he said, for the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea that is driven and tossed by the wind. He said, now, for that person must not suppose that he will receive anything from the Lord. So if we don't deal with our doubts, why pray, right? And James said he is a double-minded man, unstable in all his ways. Literally, double-minded, do you know what that means? It means double-souled. Your soul is broken. It's torn into two. And James said, you got to deal with that before you can even pray. So how do we reflect? What does it mean to reflect? Well, reflect is where you look into your soul to see your true health. Reflect is where you take a sonogram of your soul. Your soul it's who you are apart from your body. Listen, your body reflects your soul, but your body is not your soul. Your soul, it's not even your spirit, or your soul has a spirit. Your soul, you know what it is? It's your mind, it's your will, and it's your emotions. You're made in the image of God. Therefore, you are a thinking, choosing, feeling, or sensing person. You are thinking, that's your mind; choosing, that's your will; and feeling, that's your emotions. That's what kind of person you are, created in the image of God. So how do you reflect to get to look into your soul, to take this sonogram? I'm going to walk you through it now, step by step. Step number one. What am I sensing? This is the question I want to ask. What am I sensing, and what am I choosing? What I want to know is, am I walking by faith? Do I have my mind set on the things of God's Spirit? And this is vital because the author of Hebrews tells us, he said, and it is impossible to please God without faith. Anyone who wants to come to God must believe that God exists and that he rewards those who sincerely seek him. Let me translate for you. What God is saying is, if you're going to come to God, you got to believe that he exists. Okay, I get that. And usually I don't have a problem with that. My problem is with the second part, that he rewards those who seek him. In other words, he sent you believe that you can have a better life by trusting God, leaning into him, and following him than you can living life your own way. Does that make sense? So during my reflect time, I just pray like David. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. Point out anything in me that offends you, anything that's not of faith, Lord, anything that's making me anxious, and lead me along the path of everlasting life. And we know everlasting life, it's not the quantity of life, it's the quality of life, quantity and quality. This morning, during my quiet time routine, or this morning rather, I caught myself with subtle doubts. I was doubting that this teaching that I'm giving you right now would be any help to you at all. And I just started feeling a little sad from that thought. I felt like, it's no help. And then I started feeling a little hopeless, maybe even depressed, maybe a good way to describe it. But I caught that by looking into my soul. I knew that I felt sad. I knew I felt anxious, maybe depressed. I knew this isn't of God. And so I knew what I was sensing. What was I choosing? You know what I was choosing? I was choosing to be slow about getting started. I was choosing to think, I can't do this. Now, let me just tell you this. Because I caught that, I was set free, and my joy was restored, my strength returned, my passion to do what I'm doing. So I'm excited to give you what I'm doing now. But that came from reflecting. Now, if you feel joyful, if you wake up in the morning and you're just joyful, you're at peace, and you find yourself feeling strong, trusting God, like I can do anything, then you're ready for the day. If you're ready to attack hell with a water pistol, then you are ready to go and you're done reflecting. But if you get there and you find that you're sad, mad, anxious, depressed, jealous, or anything else, then you need to stop and you need to spend time reflecting. That's what this is all about. Okay, you're ready for step two. Step two is where you ask something. You ask a couple of questions. You ask why, and you ask, is this true? The question, why am I feeling what I'm feeling? It's so important that you learn to feel what's really going on in your soul. Are you feeling sad? And by the way, one of the worst things in the world to do when you come to pray is think, well, I'm not supposed to feel sad, so I'm not going to feel sad. You can't turn it off like that. Let me just tell you, I'm not supposed to be mad, so I'm just going to say I'm not mad. You got to be honest. Why? You got to know what you're feeling, and then you got to ask why. Why am I feeling sad, depressed, blue, blah, anxious, angry, jealous, fearful, whatever it is? And then you got to ask the question, is that true? When you get an answer for it, you got to push back on it and say, that's true. Is that true? Because what we have a tendency to do is to lie to ourselves. And I do it every day. I don't mean to. It's just natural to protect your true feelings. The great example for this is one of the best ones I know of. It's in the book of Genesis chapter 4. It's the story of Cain and Abel. Two brothers, Cain and Abel. Abel was a herdsman. Cain was a farmer. Both brothers brought gifts to God, and Abel brought a gift, and this is what the scripture says. Abel brought a gift from the firstborn, best of his flocks, and Cain brought an offering from his grain. Big difference in what they brought. One brought the best and the first, and the other one brought an offering, and that's pretty much all it was. And God accepted Abel's offering, but God rejected Cain's offering. Cain became angry, and so God comes to Cain and tries to get him to reflect. This is where the process was born out of, this passage. And God asked him, why? That was that question. Why are you so angry? That's what the Lord asked Cain. Why do you look so dejected? In other words, remember the soul, it's not the body, but the body reflects the soul. God looked at his body and says, why do you look so dejected? And he could tell something was wrong, and he's trying to get Cain to do the same. Look at your soul. So God told him, he said, Cain, he said, you will be accepted. In other words, I know what's wrong with you. And here's the answer. You will be accepted if you do what is right. But if you refuse to do what is right, if you refuse to give me the best, then watch out. Sin's going to get you. Watch out. Now, you know the story. Cain didn't reflect. He wasn't honest with himself. His anger grew, and he murdered his brother Abel. Now, why did Cain murder Abel when he's mad at God for rejecting his offering? Don't we do the dumbest things when we have a wounded soul? Imagine this story differently if Cain had reflected on God's question, why? Why are you so angry? Cain could have admitted, well, God, I'm angry because you love Abel more than you love me. And then God would have pushed back and said, is that true? Asking the next question, is that true? And then Cain could have spent a little more time reflecting, looking into his soul, and he would have had to admit, what I'm really angry over is that you rejected my offering and you accepted his. That's not fair. And then God could have pushed back again, but is that true? And Cain would have spent more time, and if he had been totally honest with himself, he would have been able to say, God, you rejected my offering because I didn't give you my best. And I treated you disrespectfully. God, I'm sorry. And then he could have corrected his actions. Say, here, Lord, I want to give you the best of what I have. Do you see how differently this story would have turned out? It would have been Cain and Abel talking about two different things in the Bible, not the first murder in the Bible. God had already promised Cain, you will be accepted. You'll have just what you want if you do what is true and what is right. In my state of overwhelm, I woke up after several days, honestly, of refusing to look at what was going on and to admit the truth. Finally, I reflected, and when I did, this is what happened. Let me just give you an abbreviated walkthrough of me asking the question, why and is that true? Why am I so depressed? Why am I so down? Why am I so overwhelmed? And then, is it true? I would have, the first thing was, I'm just too stupid. I'm not smart enough to do what I'm called to do. God's let me down. And then I would have had to ask, is that true? Am I really not smart enough? Has God really let me down? Have I failed? Can I not do what God's called me to do? And the answer would have had to have been no. And it was. When I walked through it and kept asking, I finally came to, no, that's not true. What God called me to do, God is equipping me to do. God is helping me. By His grace, He's filling in what I can't do. It's always been that way. Sometimes when I think I'm doing what I'm doing and it's me doing it, it's only me and God, and I just don't see God at work. God never lets me down. I was reminded of this simple truth just yesterday. My grandson, Jessen, who's just 3 years old, asked me, he said, help, Granddad, I want to help. And I was carrying some 2-inch by 6-inch by 8-foot boards. And so here's this little 3-year-old, weighs about 35, 40 pounds, and wants to help me carry this heavy board. Well, I knew he couldn't. But then I told him, sure, you can help Granddad do it. And so I've got one 6-foot board in one hand, and I've got another 6-foot board, the end of it in the other hand. And of course, there's Jessen. Of course, could Jessen do it by himself? No, he couldn't. But he could do it with my help. Isn't that what God wants to do for you and me all the time? When I finally got answered, when I finally got honest, I got my answer. And I remembered the devil's just lying to me. God is helping me. And I had my first insight that began to change my feeling of overwhelm. And faith began to be restored. I remember, I'm at war. This is spiritual warfare. And here's the second one. I just had to keep pushing on it because I wasn't totally free yet. You know, to know I'm at war, that's one thing, but I still had other problems. Is it true that my circumstances, because that's what I was telling myself, it's true that my circumstances, no one would understand. No one can know it because I'm the only one that's dealing with this. No one gets me. Is that true? And honestly, I had to admit, no, because I know the scriptures. 1 Corinthians 10:13 says that no temptation in your life, just know this, they're no different from what others have experienced. And God is faithful. He will show you a way out so that you can endure. There's nothing you're experiencing, nothing I'm experiencing that should destroy me. And I had my second helpful insight. I recognized my circumstances. They're not new. I just had to be truthful with myself. I had to keep pushing. Is it true that I've committed to do more than I can do? Is that possible? And I had to admit that I really didn't know, and so that caused me to really keep thinking: am I doing more than I should do? And I kept pushing on it. So I just came up with a step, and that was to reevaluate my commitments, and that was my third insight that was helping me break free. And I got answers to that question. Then finally, after working through these questions, of practicing through what am I sensing, what am I choosing, I discovered what I was really thinking. Once I got to the truth, then I had destroyed my doubts and I had restored my faith. And so I found my final insight. I just need to renew my trust in God. God is with me. God is for me. Honestly, when I look at things as they appear outwardly, which I can, and you can too, it still looks like I can't do it. Honestly, I think it's impossible. But if I look at it from God's perspective, God's got one end of the board. God's got one end of the house, and I've got the other end, and He's carrying most of the load. I can hear His Spirit tell me, no, you can't, but we can. Trust in me. Now I just feel like I can do this, and Reflect has restored me. Here's what Reflect will do for you. Reflect, when you've done it well, this is how you will destroy your doubts and restore your faith. And when you've done that, faith, this is where peace comes back, and this is where joy comes in, and joy is so important because Nehemiah says the joy of the Lord is your strength. This is where you find God's strength to say, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. And your circumstances may not change, but you will have changed. And your joy will return, and your passion to do everything that God's created you to do will be reignited. Well, that's all I have for you today. Hey, I've got a house to build. Don't forget to leave your questions and your comments down below. Check out my website, craigwalkercoaching.com. Don't forget to check out the links below. Until next time, may God help you to live the life that you were born.